Welcome to the webinar on benchmarking water and wastewater rates in Arizona, presented by the Environmental Finance Center at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill and co-hosted by the Water Infrastructure Finance Authority of Arizona. This webinar is an outgrowth of the 2014 Drinking Water and Wastewater Rates Survey of Arizona, Drinking Water and Wastewater Utilities. My colleague, David Tucker, will present the online interactive Arizona Water and Wastewater Rates Dashboard that was developed from the survey data and is available to you for your use. We have over 140 people registered for this webinar and a good representation throughout the state. We're so glad that so many of you are able to join us today. A little bit about who we are first. David and I work at the Environmental Finance Center at UNC. The EFC is a center dedicated to enhancing the ability of governments and other organizations to provide environmental programs and services in a fair, effective, and financially sustainable ways. We do this by conducting applied research and developing trainings and programs directly for and with local government, private organizations, and state and federal agencies. We work closely with these partners on a wide range of topics, including new and best practices in financial management, rate setting, planning for and how to pay for capital projects, improving access to and understanding funding sources, and so on. Water and wastewater is a huge portion of our work, and we have lots of free resources available for utilities and agencies to address some of the most common issues that water utilities deal with. The Water Infrastructure Finance Authority of Arizona funded the 2014 rate survey and this webinar. WIFA funds water and wastewater infrastructure projects in Arizona, and they provide financial and technical assistance throughout the state. We have several representatives from WIFA on the webinar today. At this point, I'd like to introduce Melanie Ford, Technical Program Supervisor, who will talk about the rate survey project. Melanie?
Thank you, Shadi. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. I first just wanted to extend a big thank you to all of you who participated in this year's water and wastewater rate survey. We got a phenomenal response rate, so thank you so very much for taking the time. And thank you very much to the EFC for leading the data collection effort for the first time this year. We hope we made it a lot easier for you to participate this year as we eliminated that questionnaire and simply asked you to pass along your rate sheets and financial information. So as you may know, WIFA has been conducting these annual rate surveys for many years now, and we do this really in an effort to assist Arizona utilities who are looking for that kind of information all together in one place, who are maybe doing a rates analysis and making rate-setting decisions. We've seen more and more interest in this survey, I would say, really in the past 2 to 3 years. And while the pages of data tables that we were producing were really useful for some purposes, we also wanted to create a more user-friendly tool to make the data just a little more accessible. So we learned about these rates dashboards that the Environmental Finance Center was creating for several other states already, and we partnered with them for the first time last year to create Arizona's very first dashboard, rates dashboard. So for those of you who have already used the original version, you are going to see some good enhancements today. First, of course, there are many more utilities included, and in addition to rates, we also collected the financial information, as I mentioned. And this allowed the EFC to create a pre-populated cost recovery dial. You might remember it was manual entry last year. And David is going to go over later in the webinar what that dial can tell you. Related to that new cost recovery feature, I'd also like to point out that the dashboard really is not just about comparisons. Comparisons can be a useful starting point for discussion. And we've got actually even more comparison groups for you this year, but they really only take you so far. So the cost recovery and affordability data that you'll see, and that's 2 out of 4 dials on the dashboard, These data are benchmarked against a standard measure, so it's independent of what any other utility is doing. So this is really important, as I'm sure you all know, since every utility out there is dealing with a really unique set of variables that affect what kind of rate structure will work for them. And then just one final point before I turn it back over to David. I'd also like to let you know that the EFC has, for the first time this year, produced our rate survey report. This should be final in early October and contains lots more data and especially lots more analysis than our previous year's reports. We're really excited about it here at WIFA, and we will definitely send you all a link when it's complete. So thank you again for joining us today, and I'll turn it over to David to jump into the webinar.
Thank you, Melanie. So at this point, I'll introduce David Tucker, the project director at the EFC, who led the project for the state of Arizona. David will present some of the results of the rate survey and demonstrate using the rates dashboard. David.
Thank you very much, Shadi. And Melanie, thank you very much. We really are delighted to be here today with all of you from the state of Arizona, from utilities, from WIFA, from other statewide organizations who have been partners in this process and who have provided data for this process. It's really great to be with all of you today. Our objectives for the webinar today are to help you to become familiar with the features and benefits of the Arizona Water and Wastewater Rates Dashboard. And we'll be seeing that in just a little while. And to learn how to compare water systems, we also have wastewater systems in there too, rates with those of other systems, and to learn how to apply some useful financial benchmarks to your system like Melanie was just referring to. I also want to take this opportunity to remind everyone, please, if you do have questions at any point during the webinar, type them into the question box so that Shadi or I can answer you back either one-on-one electronically or take the question on air to everyone. I also want to encourage all of you who are water or wastewater utilities in Arizona. I would love to have some volunteers to show your rates when we demonstrate the dashboard. Now, this is not designed to put anyone on the spot at all. We just want to help give some real-life examples to folks of what it means when you're looking at your readings on the dashboard. So please give me a hand there if you would, and type in your name and your name of your system if you would like us to show you on air here. So thank you very much in advance for that. We have a couple of poll questions to help us get to know you, and Shadi's going to launch the first one right now. You should see it on the screen. What kind of water and or wastewater utility do you represent? We want to know whether you're municipal, not-for-profit, for-profit, all of those kinds of different categories. And we can see the results are rolling in now, which is great. And we'll give you a few more seconds to respond before we show the results on the screen to everyone. Okay, I think that's probably enough time now, and Shadi will launch the results of the first poll question. Okay, and we see that almost 70% of you who are in attendance today are municipal water systems. Welcome, and we are very grateful to the League of Arizona Cities and Towns, as well as the Arizona Municipal Water Users Association and the Northern Arizona Water Users Association for helping to spread the word about the webinar today. And I'm not surprised to see that it's mostly municipal systems since, as you will see later in the presentation, you do cover a large majority of the people served in your state. I'm glad to see there's some not-for-profits and some other kinds of organizations in attendance too. So Shadi will launch the next polling question now for us to get to know you better who are on the call with us today on the webinar. So we are curious to know what size water and or wastewater system does your utility operate by the number of people served, not by the number of connections, but rather by the number of people served. And so we'll give that a few more seconds to roll in there and see what we get. these breaks we take from how the EPA divides up some of the different size categories in the Safe Drinking Water Information System, or SIDWIS, which is a great data source for us. Okay, and I think we've given that one enough time now, so Shadi will close that and display the answers. So we see that almost half of you are serving 10,000 or more people, and about a quarter serving that between 500 and 3,300 people. And it's great to see there is a range of small, medium, and large systems here. Really glad to see that. So, Shadi, we can go ahead and hide that one, and I'll go on to the next slide. We just put this slide together here because it's a reminder to us all of how important water is to everyone and how in the news and in the public eye it is these days. From your neighboring state of California facing a terrible drought. We know Arizona's been facing some drought issues as well, to the unfortunate situation that some customers in Detroit are facing these days, and so on. And it's an issue that we're passionate about helping people to provide financially sustainable water and wastewater services around the United States. As Melanie said, we've been delighted to partner with WIFA on this rate survey this year that we conducted for the state of Arizona. And the results at a top level here are that we had 407 water and or wastewater rate structures and 376 water and or wastewater utilities. The difference there being that some utilities, especially some of the larger utilities, may have more than one unique kind of rate structure in effect, different numbers charged to customers in different geographic areas, for example. We believe that our survey covers approximately 90% of all of the people, all of the water and wastewater utilities in the state of Arizona, and approximately 95% of all of the service population for community water systems in the state of Arizona based on the SIDWIS database. And included in the survey results are systems of many different kinds, from municipalities to for-profit systems, domestic water and wastewater improvement districts, sanitary districts, and a variety of other kinds of systems. We've done some analysis for today's webinar. And I'll also point out that this project, kindly funded by the Water Infrastructure Finance Authority of Arizona, is paying for today's webinar, for the rates dashboard that you will see in just a moment, and also for some rates tables, hundreds of pages of rates tables, and a comprehensive summary report that we will be, as Melanie mentioned earlier, releasing by early October, with a great deal of additional analysis beyond what you'll see in today's webinar. So in this graph, you see that the median monthly drinking water bills at 7,000 gallons per month, based upon the number of people served. The broad trend is perhaps an unsurprising one, that as the size of the utility gets larger, the median bill, for the most part, gets smaller. Slight spike on the top category there, but not really a big difference. The pattern is not really as clear-cut when it comes to breaking up the smaller number of wastewater utilities for which we have service populations. It bounces around more there, and that is interesting. And actually, if any of you who are on the call are wastewater utilities and have thoughts about that, feel free to share those with us in the questions box. We also analyzed drinking water utilities by ownership type. And in terms of the number of utilities, in the survey results, 222 of them, or about 62%, are for-profit utilities. By and large, they are regulated by the Arizona Corporation Commission. And we know we had some staff members from ACC sign up for the webinar today, so we're glad to have you here. Next largest category would be municipalities, followed by districts, which is largely going to be domestic water improvement districts. However, looking at service population, a different story, very largely municipalities, followed by the for-profit utilities. We also looked at, for the drinking water rate structures in Arizona, what kind of rate structures are primarily in use. As you can see from the red there, increasing block rate structures are the largest category. So for the uninitiated, basically there are these tiers you reach where above certain levels of consumption the price per unit gets higher. A decreasing block would be the opposite of that. And the next highest category we see are uniform rates for the volumetric component of the charges. For wastewater utility ownership type, we can see that, again, the largest group is municipalities by the number of utilities, followed by for-profits, and then authorities or sanitary districts and other kinds of districts like domestic wastewater improvement districts. Looking at the rate structures, a different story than we see from drinking water, where primarily it is non-volumetric flat fees, so just something like you pay $50 a month and that's it. And then a uniform rate where there might be a base charge plus a uniform rate for the thousands of gallons or hundreds of cubic feet that are used per month, or whatever the billing period is. So looking at base charges, which is a source of great interest to us as finance people here, we've broken down for drinking water the base charges in Arizona among different groups here for how large the charge is. The median came up at about $18 per month. And you can see that these numbers bounce around here some, where the largest categories are either over $25 per month or between $10 and $15 per month. But there's a broad distribution of the magnitude of the base charges for drinking water. Wastewater base charges, however, tell a different story, where you can see that the largest concentration by far is the above $25 per month group. And I believe that reflects that that more of that revenue is coming in without as much of a volumetric component. In tabular form here, you can see very quickly that for median drinking water bills at 7,000 gallons per month and wastewater bills at 5,000 gallons per month, we looked at the drinking water at a little higher volume corresponding to what we're seeing about usage patterns in Arizona. So the largest numbers you see there are for the drinking water side on the left. For districts and counties, we've got the largest median bill there. For municipalities, the lowest median bill at $28.97, highest at $48.50 per month. On the wastewater side, the for-profit utilities, slightly smaller number of utilities, $42.20 per month, the largest grouping, and the municipalities, the lowest amount at $28.69 per month for the median. And approaching the end of the graphs here, and you're about to see the dashboard, so almost there. For the 356 rate structures that we analyzed here, you can see basically the message here is that as the thousands of gallons per month consumed for drinking water goes up, the spread increases between the maximum and the minimum bill, and the median goes up in a fairly linear pattern there. So the rates dashboard is available both through our website for the EFC, and WIFA also is posting it to their website. This slide presentation will be sent out to all of you later, so if you don't get these links right this moment, you will be getting them by the end of the week by email. And now it's time for me to launch the rates dashboard that we've all been waiting for. And while I'm doing that, Shadi, are there any questions that have come on that we should talk about right now?
We have one question that will test your memory when looking at the rate sheets right now, so I'm not sure if you'll have the answer off the top of your head. But
okay. The
question was, are there any jurisdictions in Arizona that have a water rate structure without a base charge? So it's purely volumetric. If you have 0 gallons of usage, you get $0 as a bill. Do you remember any of those?
Thank you, Shadi. That's an excellent question. I do not remember any of those, but since I did not do all of the data entry by myself because we had other valued members of the team here, we will check on that and we will get back to you after the webinar on that. But I do not remember seeing one of those off the top of my head.
If I remember correctly, it's really rare, so it's either the answer is nobody's doing it or maybe 1 or 2 out of the entire state that we've seen.
Agreed. And any other questions right now, Shai?
Nope, we can go ahead.
Excellent. All right, well, thank you. So here's the dashboard for this year for Arizona. And when you first come in, you'll see this message saying, you know, go to this drop-down bar here to select your utility. So let's start with an imaginary example utility. And I'm going to use that to show you some of the basics about the dashboard, and then we'll bring up some volunteers, which I think Shadi has gotten a couple of those, which is great. And it's not too late for more of you to volunteer as well by typing into the questions box, so please feel free to do so. So let's start on the upper left side of the dashboard where you get to select either the water bill, which is what comes up initially, or the sewer bill, or the water and sewer combined if the system offers both of those services. Also, you can use the slider, the consumption slider right below that, to select anywhere between 0 gallons per month, which would essentially be the base charge, all the way up to 15,000 gallons per month. But let's look at water at 7,000 gallons per month for right now. Initially, you're looking at all of the utilities together, and the monthly median water bill for this imaginary utility is for $38.64 per month. And you see that also here on the bill comparison dial. And up at the top, that's the median is approximately $40 for all of the selected comparison group, which currently is all utilities. So we got some color coding here, and hopefully it's fairly intuitive. But this darker green in the middle, that's the middle 50% of the utilities in the selected comparison group. And then the yellow you see at the top and the bottom is the lowest 10% and the highest 10%. So this imaginary example utility is right close to the median in the middle there. Also, all of these dials have help boxes that come up when you click on these little question buttons here that give you some explanation of what you're looking at and how it works. You can also see the minimum and the maximum displayed here. The conservation signal dial to the right of that, like the bill comparison dial, is also looking at all the utilities in the currently selected comparison group. But what it is doing is it's looking at, is the utility sending a meaningful price signal to its customers at a higher, more, we would say, discretionary level of usage. So going from 10,000 to 11,000 gallons per month, that incremental price or marginal price, is it showing in the bottom quarter, that dark yellow there, the top quarter, that dark green, or it's actually pointing to the boundary between the light yellow and the light green, so right around the median there. So this $3.73 per 1,000 gallons is sending a middling kind of signal. If it was all the way into the top there, we'd be sending a stronger signal to the consumer about perhaps you don't need that 11,000 gallon this month, or beyond that 12 or 13,000, and vice versa if it's a weaker signal. As Melanie Ford mentioned earlier, the bottom two dials on this tab of the dashboard, though, are not benchmarking against a peer group of utilities and their rate structures, but rather against some kind of a number chosen as a standard benchmark. So for the affordability dial in the lower right, there are a lot of ways into the conversation about how affordable are rates for customers. And this dial is not the be-all and end-all of that conversation, but it's a good way in because we've taken from the U.S. Census Bureau's survey data the MHI, or median household income, for water, or of course you can switch to sewer. And in both of those cases, we have the green zone, if you will, up to 1%, which is a way of saying if you're a median customer, right in the middle of your customer base there, 50%, is the price that's being charged probably in a fairly affordable range or not. Yellow zone, perhaps that next between 1 and 1.5%, it starts to be a bit of a concern for that median customer. Red zone above 1.5% definitely might be enough of a concern for them that it could be tough for them to pay. If you select water and sewer together, then those percentages double there. Now, of course, if you're a customer from the lowest income group or the highest income group in the customer base, you may feel those price pressures in a different way. And in case you're wondering what the denominator is there of a year of water bills divided by the median household income, you can click on the Characteristics tab, and it will show you for that community the MHI and how it compares to that of the state of Arizona. It will also show you the poverty rates, which is another way to look into the question of affordability. And you get a few key summary statistics here: the ownership type, the number of accounts, the service population, and the revenue based upon what services you've selected on the rates comparison tab. Also, I just want to point out that if you click on the Help button for affordability, you can see what I think is a really great blog post written by my colleague here, Shadi Eskoff, on this question of assessing affordability. The last dial is the cost recovery dial. And while we had a cost recovery dial on last year's dashboard, it was not populated with cost recovery data. And so we in WIFA collected annual financial reports from the utilities that we collected the rates data from, and we used that to construct an operating ratio. So for your water enterprise fund, or your sewer enterprise fund, or your combined enterprise fund, if you offer both services, it will display here the operating ratio, the revenues divided by the expenses, including depreciation. And I will just show you also a different example here of an affordability issue for an imaginary utility. We've got here where the customers for water and sewer services at, let's set it to 5,000 gallons per month. They're paying almost 5% of their median household income there. Pretty tough situation for those folks with that imaginary utility. Now, a couple more things about how the dashboard works, and then we're going to get some of the volunteers up here and give you some instant analysis of what we're seeing. So there are other comparison groups, and that's also a new feature this year alongside all of the financial data that we put behind the cost recovery dial. So as before, we have similar service population around the state. In this case, this is between 5,000 and 16,000 people served. We have similar revenue generation. We also have a new one this year, your watershed. And this imaginary utility is set in the Santa Cruz watershed in Arizona. Using the same water source, this is based upon how you're regulated by the EPA under the Safe Drinking Water Act. So these are the systems that are regulated as surface water systems. Also, using the same rate structure, these are all utilities using an increasing block rate structure. Same median household income that we were just referring to. Within 50 miles distance, this may not be as relevant as some of the other ones relating to, cost structures and the basis of what kind of rates you need to recover your costs, but it's still one that can be interesting to look at. The same regional council of Arizona. Same ownership type. These are all of the for-profit utilities included in this year's survey results. And the same climate zone. In this case, the low and mid-desert climate zone. So we'll take it back to all utilities now. And finally, if you're considering a rate increase for your utility, this will provide you a very limited first look at being able to raise your rates up to as much as 100%. Now, hopefully, so that your customers don't have a heart attack, you wouldn't raise it 100% in just 1 year. You would phase in more gradual kinds of rate increases, like, say, 17% here or something. And we've also built in here, this caution that appears that says, because generally speaking, law of supply and demand, you charge more for stuff, people buy less stuff. We actually program in a 3% drop in demand for every 10% increase in price. But if you really want a more nuanced look at that, we have other tools at the EFC, like our rates model, that can help provide more analysis, and you're always welcome to contact us about that. So I'll just point out, too, there is a links tab here where we link to our funder WIFA, which we're very grateful to them to have the chance to do this project, links to our other states' dashboards, link to request direct assistance for small systems serving 10,000 or fewer people. You hear more about that at the end of the webinar. A link to email yours truly here with questions or comments. And we had several other partnering organizations who helped us to spread the word about today's webinar, about the dashboard, about the other deliverables. And we're very grateful to AMLA, the League, and NAMLA for partnering with us here. So, Shadi, I see we have some volunteers, and before we start putting them up, are there some other questions to ask?
We did get a couple of questions. I'll paraphrase one, which asks about the 7,000 gallons to calculate the water bill. The question was, are we looking at what's being charged for 7,000 gallons, or did we take the seasonal monthly consumption and calculate each month's bill for a complete year and then calculate the average bill? So why did we pick 7,000? Is it the average bill for that specific utility, or is it what you're charging for 7,000 in general? And if it's the 7,000 is just what's being charged at 7,000, then how is this a helpful tool when it's not looking at the average bill exactly?
That's a great question, and thank you to the questioner for submitting that. We are based here in North Carolina, and we have seen usage patterns here in North Carolina and the rest of the Southeast that may be more like 5,000 or less than 5,000, like 4,500 gallons per month. But we have seen some data for Arizona indicating that the average household drinking water usage is significantly higher than that, 7,000, possibly 8,000 or 9,000. But this is on a statewide basis. This is not necessarily about your particular utility. We had to make an across-the-board decision about where to preset that when you first power up the dashboard. And in part also because when folks apply to WIFA for funding, it's a variety of pieces of information they need to provide, one of which is what is your bill at 7,500 gallons per month is one of the data points to provide. And so it was on that basis that we selected 7. And of course, if you know for your utility that the more typical usage for a household for drinking water is 6 or 5,000 or 4,000 or a higher number, 8 or 9, you can just slide it right over to what you want to see. With sewer, it is more likely that the average wastewater disposal or wastewater usage is going to be a number more like 5,000 that we're more accustomed to seeing. And so we just encourage you to slide that slider to wherever gives you the results that are most appropriate to your community and your service area.
Okay, thank you, David. And I think the key point is that you have the ability to customize where what consumption amount you want to compare to, and you'll end up comparing how much you're charging for your average bill to other utilities for the same volume of water that you're comparing to. Another question asked, can we use the dashboards to customize our comparison groups by benchmarking specific cities or cities in the valley? Can you customize further than what's available?
Well, that's a very good question. Right now, you can only select one comparison group at a time. So, for example, if you did use the within 50 miles distance, that would get you geographically some communities that are close to where you're situated. However, I do know that, this is not what the questioner is asking specifically, what I'm about to say, but an old-fashioned way you might say that some people would look at rate setting would be, let me see the 1 or 2 communities next door, my rate's lower than they are, because if my rates are lower, then thank goodness, that'll keep people off my back. But in fact, we have found a best practice to be rates set sufficiently to retrieve, to generate enough revenue to cover your costs. And that's what the cost recovery dial is all about. In that case, some of the other comparison groups might be lending themselves more to something about other utilities with similar kinds of cost structures to what you have. So for example, same water source, how the water source is regulated has to do with the cost of providing the water. Or you might want to think about affordability of rates and look at the similar median household income group. But right now, we don't have the ability to customize to a more specific geographic area. The rates tables that we are going to post in the coming days will allow you to go through one utility at a time, though, if you want to look at a particular basket of utilities for your analytical purposes and pick them out there, and you will see the bill amounts for multiple consumption amounts. Like for residential, you'll see 0, 3, 4, 5, 7, 10, 15,000 gallons per month. For water, the same for wastewater. And the tables, unlike the dashboard, will also show you commercial rates, whereas the dashboard is just showing you residential rates. That's a great question. Okay.
David, do you have time for one more quick question?
I think one more quick question very quickly, and then we'll show some volunteers.
Okay. So the question is, on the bill comparison dial, are we showing only the cost of water, or does it include other fees in the average monthly bill?
That is a great question. So on the bill comparison dial, we are showing the cost of water in the sense of the base charge, if there is one, the volumetric rates, if there are volumetric rates. We are not showing things relating to taxation, since we know there is taxation, or for other kinds of surcharges. I think. I'm sorry, Shadi's just conferring with me here about this, but
I think that in cases that you have surcharges that apply monthly, so if it's a water withdrawal surcharge or a capital improvement surcharge, those were included in the volumetric and capital costs. I think what David's talking about are like drought surcharges or surcharges that don't apply every single month. Those were excluded, as well as taxes. We also don't include things like trash removal and recycling charges or anything that's beyond water, drinking water and wastewater services.
Thanks very much, Shadi. You're absolutely right about that. All right, well, those are some really great questions, and I want to say keep them coming. If we have time for more questions, we'll answer them on air. If we don't, then we will communicate with you afterwards. But let's bring up our first volunteer here, the Ehrenberg Improvement Association. I hope I am pronouncing that correctly. And Ehrenberg, as you can see, they offer drinking water services. And so looking at their bill at, let's slide it up to 7,000 gallons per month. And in that case, you can see from the bill comparison dial that they are right at the very bottom of the middle 50%. So they're about 35% above the minimum there at $25.35 per month. They're sending a conservation signal when going from 10 to 11,000 gallons of water per month in the second quartile, we would call it, so between 25 and 50% of the data there. In other words, not the strongest, not the weakest conservation signal, looking at all utilities here, of course. For affordability, we see that they're hovering just above 1%. And I always like to know what the denominator in that ratio is. So even though the median household income for their service area, or the closest we could approximate to your service area, is slightly above half that of the state of Arizona, they're still keeping water fairly affordable there for a median customer from this kind of top-level analysis. In terms of cost recovery, we have included in the denominator here, in the calculation of the operating expenses, we've included depreciation. So if we were to exclude that, perhaps you're breaking even there. But by including depreciation, we're starting in on that conversation of are you putting aside money for replacing the capital stock. And in fact, this little yellow zone here, it goes to green at 1.2. I don't think I said before, because broadly speaking, and different utilities are going to have different cost structure situations and different funding situations. But broadly speaking, if you can be recovering enough revenue from your rates to bring in that extra 20% that you can put away into your capital improvement fund, that can help with those capital improvements that ultimately are coming for all of us sooner or later, one way or another. So I'm curious to see if Ehrenberg offers wastewater services. You do not. So you're just offering drinking water services there. All right, well, let's go on to the next one now. And I believe there is Eager is the name of the system, and I am pardon the pun, but I'm eager to display you here on the screen. Shadi has to put up with this for me all the time, so you're lucky it's only for 1 hour here yourselves. For the Eager, Arizona system, we see the bill comparison dial pointing to a very similar location of rates on the lower side as Ehrenberg. Also the conservation signal in very similar territory in that second quarter of the data. The affordability looks to be pretty affordable for the median customer there at about 0.5%, and I bet we'll see a higher corresponding MHI, and we do. And you can see it's slightly above the statewide average there, and lower poverty rate too. There's also when it applies on the characteristics tab, and for many of you who are water and sewer systems in Arizona, this does not apply. But if you have rates outside, especially if you're a municipality, rates outside your corporate limits that are different than those inside your corporate limits, we show this ratio here, in this case at 5,000 gallons per month, and we see that the outside, as we call them, rates are twice that what they are for inside. And that relates to recovering costs as well. It's a longer conversation than we have time for now. Cost recovery dial, almost breaking even plus recovering something for depreciation. Very close there. As with Ehrenberg, perhaps could be a bit higher. I also want to see, do you offer wastewater services? And you do. And the numbers are similar on the affordability dial and the bill comparison and cost recovery dials. I do see that it's $0 for that price signal, which probably means you're charging a flat rate, and yes, you are. All right, well, let's go on to the next one. We have a volunteer here from Buckeye, Arizona. And we'll slide up to the B's here. Oh, I overshot, and there's Buckeye. And the rates for Buckeye for water at 7,000 gallons, slightly above the median there. Actually, let me send it back to all utilities. Still slightly above the median. Sending a rather stronger conservation signal, probably indicating for those of you who are setting the rates in Buckeye, a concern about preserving the scarce water resource going forward. Affordability, also in good territory. Cost recovery, breaking even, plus depreciation, but could perhaps be a little higher. If we go to wastewater and slide back down to 5,000 gallons a month, we're seeing some numbers a little below the median on the bill comparison dial. In sort of the middle here for the conservation signal dial. Very good on the affordability again, and not at this time it looks like recovering enough revenue from your rates to come close to the breaking even point plus depreciation there. So that does look like a possible source of concern depending on your philosophy of funding the systems there, but usually we find it to be a best practice that the enterprise funds should be self-sustaining from the revenues associated with them. I know I'm giving a very quick treatment to each of you who has so kindly volunteered, and thank you again very much for doing that. I think we have time for just one more, and then we're done. And actually, Shadi's giving me the time signal here. So we have 4 more of you who volunteered. We'll be glad to provide some feedback to you off air if you want. If you do, type that into the questions box, and we'll be sure to do that. So I need to get us back to our slide deck here and tell you about a couple more things.
David, do you have a minute for a couple of quick questions?
Yes, I do, Shai.
These are relatively quick. So the first one is, if you have seasonal rates, which of the rates are you using?
Thank you. I did mean to mention that earlier. My apologies on not doing so sooner. When seasonal rates apply, we have, at least for now, and this has been our custom with dashboards in other states, chosen the low season rate. Now, we recognize that there are other seasonal rates that exist, and in the future, we hope to create dashboards by, say, the end of 2015, where you can see all of the applicable seasonal rates. We're sorry that we don't have that capability right at this moment here. But if you are interested in analysis that is based upon your mid-season or your high-season rates, you can always contact us to talk to us about that, especially if you're a small system, which we'll talk about in just a minute.
Thank you, David. And the other question was in regards to the conservation signal dial. Is the signal being measured only against your own rate structure, or is there a larger pool of information? So are you comparing your own utilities price signal against other utilities or against your own info?
Yes, yes. So for the conservation signal dial, and I'll bring the dashboard back up again for just a moment here. The conservation signal dial, like the bill comparison dial, you're looking at the basket of utilities that are selected. In this case, the comparison group is all utilities, but it could be same watershed, for example. So it's all of the utilities whose rate structures are in that selected comparison group. So it's not just are you sending a quote strong or quote weak conservation signal on some absolute basis, but also in comparison to the other utilities in that selected comparison group. All right. Well, thank you, Shadi. And thank you to all the questioners with all the great questions. We have this silly little graphic here of how animals need water too. But we have a couple more polling questions we want to ask you, and we'll be wrapping up here at the top of the hour. And so Shadi's going to go ahead and launch that right now. What utility management and finance topic are you most concerned about? And we will be interested to know your answers to that. So go ahead and send those in right now. Very good. And Shadi, did we want to display that to everybody?
Sure. Let's give it a couple more seconds to see some responses coming in. All right. Very good. And we can see that for those of you on the poll, and you could select more than one answer here, rate setting and communicating about rates is very important. Cost recovery is very important. Also, some understandable concern about conservation signals or conservation rates and affordability. So thank you for letting us know that. We have actually a few more slides than we have time for right now, where we like to talk to you some about benchmarking of rates more generally. I will just touch on a couple of things very quickly before we wrap up. Let me get this back into the full screen mode here. You'll see this is from somewhere in the United States, not in Arizona, an actual news flash from a utility about we're very proud that our bills are among the very, very lowest in the state. I think it says third lowest statewide. And I'm sure all of us like to pay as customers less rather than more for our bills, but if costs are not being recovered, it's unsustainable. And what about affordability for your customers? What about all kinds of other considerations? And so that's where a powerful tool like the dashboard can help you look at your rates from a variety of different angles, and you can weigh what's most important to you and your boards and your customers. A bar chart like this lining up everyone side by side, well, that gives you more information than that article did, but not nearly as much as you would see in the dashboard. And this is what I was just talking about a moment ago about a number of things that are wrong with comparing only one bill amount, not being able to slide a consumption slider around as a previous questioner was alluding to, and so on. And this was what we used to do before we created the dashboards. We produced these big tables, and if that was the only thing you had to go on, you might look kind of like this guy here. But the tables still have their uses, don't they? We also want to point out we also have dashboards for other states like Alabama, Colorado, Georgia, North Carolina, Texas, Virginia, and we do a private one for Canada. All of these are free, online, open to the public, and they compare against a variety of different things like we've been hearing about. So, already demonstrated the dashboard. You've already gotten to see that. We want to make sure you know about a few resources, and we want you to know that the blog, the Environmental Finance Center's blog, is available, as well as the Environmental Finance Center network, of which we're a part of nationwide with a group of environmental finance centers in other parts of the country. This website here, efcnetwork.org, you can go there for more information about the Small Systems Project,
for systems serving 10,000 or fewer people. We have resources from the first round of it as well as the second round, which is underway now, going through December of 2015. You can also sign up for Twitter, and that's the link right there. And Shadi, I believe, is going to launch our next polling question now. It's just a simple yes or no. Would you like to be subscribed to our blog? We don't take your email address and, you know, sell it to anybody or anything crazy like that. We just use it to subscribe you to the blog in case you're interested. On the blog, you'll hear a lot about water and wastewater finance, but also some of our work in other areas like energy finance or finance related to stormwater or solid waste. Sometimes we have things that we post there as well.
And David, I'll mention that just by pure coincidence, today's blog post was focused on affordability of water and sewer rates, and a different tool, a do-it-yourself Excel assessor of affordability of rates. So that goes beyond percent MHI, and how can you look at rates and how that's affordable to your customers using a whole suite of metrics. So that's the sort of stuff that you would see on the blog.
Thank you, Shadi. That's fantastic. And we won't be showing these results to you right now. We'll just be taking those of you who said yes and subscribing you. So the Smart Management for Small Water Systems project, or Small Systems project, that we've been referring to here, it is continuing now, and we want you to be aware that if you are a small system serving 10,000 or fewer people with a water system, a drinking water system, that you're eligible to ask us for direct technical assistance. That means potentially up to 20 hours of our time, not your time necessarily, to help you with questions relating to any of these areas of the project. I think it's really exciting that this opportunity exists thanks to funding from the United States Environmental Protection Agency. So if you need help with your system with questions related to asset management, analysis related to water loss reduction, water system collaboration, financial planning and rate setting, energy management, a particular favorite topic for me, and the others listed here, you can go to this link and put in the request. You can also contact me or Shadi or others at EFC directly. And again, if you're a small system. The next polling question is going to be launched right now by Shadi, and it's based on what we were just talking about there. So if you are a small system and you're interested in receiving that in-depth technical assistance, you can indicate yes or no here. Or if you're not sure, you know, it's free in the sense that it will not cost you any money because the EPA is the funder of this project. However, we will need a little bit of your time to talk with us about what your issues and concerns are, see if we have a good fit of how we can help you with some analysis, and for you to give us some data to chew on. So you would need to commit a little bit of time, but not a lot in order to help us help you. Very good. All right. And we also want to ask you to put in your 2 cents about how we've done today. And in other words, we're going to show you a link in just a moment here to a Qualtrics survey. And if you have time to take it right now at the end of the webinar, please do. If you don't, this is going to be emailed out to you at the same time that we email out the link to the slides from today and the video recording that we're making. And it shouldn't take you more than 5 minutes. We value your feedback. It's very important to us, and we hope that you'll take the time to do that. And I think I've preempted Shadi here, who is going to say thanks to all of you at the end. Are there any last questions here before we sign off, Shadi?
We do have a question. I just want to remind everybody you still have a couple more minutes to submit questions. But the question that's come in right now is, for one specific utility, we're showing their older rates as of May 2014. They had raised rates in July. And can they update this information on this dashboard?
Right. We appreciate that question, and in fact, it brings up a rather important part about the dashboard that I didn't have time to address before, but that I want to address right now. So we, as you can see at the top of the dashboard, we had to draw the line somewhere, so we did the survey for rates effective as of May. And hopefully we'll be in a position to next year update the dashboard, and every year going forward, working with the fine folks from WIFA. We can't necessarily do an update right now, but there is the ability to manually, temporarily add your utility. And this is something where even if your utility is already in there, you could put in, we'll call it utility A, and say 6,000 gallons per month. You could put in what the rates, what bill would result from your current rates. You can change the year of the bill. You can put in your own MHI, and if you don't know that, you can get it from the Census Bureau. We can help you to know where to look for that. You could put in your operating revenues for your drinking water there, and you could put in your operating expenses. This will be somebody who's in a little bit of trouble here. And then you hit the compare button, and then it shows you some of what you could see if you were already in there. You don't get to choose comparison groups, but you do get some instant analysis here. You can hit the Edit Data button and go back and you know, move the figures around some more. There are also these up and down buttons you can use here. None of this is written permanently to the database. As soon as you close out and then come back tomorrow and turn your computer on, none of that is in there, and you're the only one who sees it with this temporarily add your own utility. I also want to point out that let's say you are an actual utility here, like the A. Peterson Water Company, and let's say you have a more current financial report that just came out this year. You can temporarily edit your cost recovery data there, selecting include, you know, the data that I'm typing in right now, hit save and close, and that temporarily overrides that. That also is not written to the database, and so when you click the reset button in red up at the top, it returns to the data that's based on the financial survey that we did. So that's one way to deal with the question from the questioner.
Thank you, David. We had another question asking if we were talking about helping small water systems with the EPA grant. Can other entities that are not small systems still contact us for some help?
Absolutely, and that is a terrific question. And you know, we have funding from a variety of sources and are always looking for additional project funding. So the Small Systems Project is not the only project we have going on. Sometimes we'll have funding from a national foundation that will allow us to work with large systems, or we may conduct a contract with your utility specifically to provide a particular kind of analysis for you. So regardless of what size you are, if you're interested in working with us on some kind of rates and financial analysis, contact us and we'll see what we can work out to help you out with that.
Thank you, David. I think those are all the questions that we've got, and we're just on time. So thanks to David for presenting the dashboard and some of the survey results. I'd like to thank everybody for attending. It was a pleasure spending our time with you. Please remember that you can contact WIFA or the EFC at UNC with questions about the dashboard. We'd also love to hear back some feedback about the dashboard. We did get some comments submitted through the question box suggesting some additions or you know, commenting that it's a great tool. So we thank you for that. And if you have some feedback on how to improve the dashboard for future purposes, we would really love to hear from you. We will be following up with people who have asked questions, but we did not have time to answer right away. There were a couple that I did earmark for later. And please be on the lookout for future emails from WIFA and the EFC indicating that the survey summary reports and the data tables are available for download. That should be coming pretty soon. Sometime today you'll receive, or sometime today or tomorrow, you'll receive an email with the link with a 5-minute survey questionnaire that David talked about. We would appreciate you completing that because it would help us. You'll be providing feedback on this webinar specifically. Thank you, everybody, and we hope that you have a wonderful time.
Thanks, everyone.